today's topic is a lighthearted panel called Building Themes for Clients, what you need to know when handing over the keys to end users. So as web designers and developers, whether we want to admit it or not, clients are the lifeblood of what our business is. We build, design, and develop based on the requirements and wants. Luckily for us, the beauty of WordPress is that it's not only one of the easiest to use CMSs out there, but it's incredibly intuitive for a first-time user. And with the right amount of knowledge and expertise, being a fantastic tool for clients. And it's definitely not like using Drupal or Joomla. Ooh. But even with this knowledge, WordPress can be intimidating for some users and clients. So today's panel is a discussion on not only the proper tools and techniques for developing WordPress sites clients can use, but also talk on the client relationship in general. So as a disclaimer, all of these panelists that are offering their time, they're here as designers and developers, and the people that they may talk about in their conversation are not any of their clients. So if you're a client of theirs in the room, they're not talking about you.
They only talk about clients who aren't here.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about clients. No, but in all honesty, this is like a fun talk and stuff like that, and we all know that there's a relationship and stuff like that, so please don't grill them or us about anything that we say. So let's start things off. I guess we'll talk a little bit about the client and relationship. Who's familiar with Clients from Hell?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so if you don't know what Clients from Hell is, it is this wonderful website. Maybe turn your head around for it. Oh, you can see it. Perfect. So basically, anonymously, people go on and they leave posts about all the crazy things that clients do, all that kind of stuff. And this is a great example. So, will my website also work in Texas? This is a good question. Should have never known. Anyways, so let's start off. So kind of with that idea, let's start off. I want to introduce the panel. Pardon? Now is when you do the way. So first off, there's Aleah Dunfield. You want to do a little introduction of yourself?
Okay, sure. So I'm the owner and founder of the Creative Patch Design Studio, Inc. So we started off doing iPhone and iPad app design, and then we kind of expanded into websites, and then continued with branding and online marketing. So now we kind of do a plethora of services, and I'm based here in Calgary. I was in Port St. John for a little bit, doing some motion graphics and advertising for the oil and gas industry, and then now coming back, also partnered up with Material Insights. They specialize in marketing for tech, and so I've kind of shifted my focus from oil and gas to more technology-based type startups and companies. And primarily, I push clients into working with WordPress because what exactly we're going to be talking about today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Side here is Andrew. Do a little intro. Continue the wave.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Forbes. I do various things pertaining to this. I'm the co-founder and business manager, I guess you can say, of NE403, sort of a website that helps. Initially, the plan was to help independent music in Calgary, and so that kind of got me into helping bands and through different ways, through social media, through website promotions, through all kinds of different things. So that kind of got me into WordPress, and then so from there, I ended up still working with bands, helping with things, but also been doing sort of website development on the side, helping usually smaller organizations, nonprofits. I did a church website last year, which was fun. Just usually working with a lot of small groups and trying to give them a voice and help tell their story. That's sort of the gist of what I try to do in my different ways.
And beside him is Dan, who's not an official representative to say today, but Go ahead.
My name is Dan Stevenson. I've been working in the digital media industry here in Calgary since 2000. I like to call myself a journeyman. I've done a little bit of everything. I've run my own company. I've worked for other companies, both agencies. I work for some digital publishing companies. Now my full-time job is an instructor in the new media program here at SAIT. So I'm teaching students how to learn these skills, get out in the work world, get jobs using WordPress, using other tools. And I also run a consulting agency on the side where we don't necessarily use WordPress for everything. We always pick the best tool for the job, but generally WordPress falls in there. I'm a long-time WordPress user. I've been using WordPress since WordPress 2 Duke, for those of you that know the code words, or the code names for them. So long time using WordPress, seen a lot of innovation in WordPress over time. And I think what we're talking about now, this is the prime time for WordPress for handing off to clients and having them be comfortable with this.
Perfect. So, Dan, I'm going to start off with you. Switch it up. So, right off the bat, obviously, since we've all laughed at clients from hell, what is your take on it? Is this the good thing for the industry, or is it just really designers and developers being petty?
I think that as humans, we have a need to complain. We do it in person. If you ever met up with designers and developer buddies over beer, you're going to talk about these things with your friends. You're going to make fun of your clients. I think it's just another way of expressing it. We do this on Twitter, we do this on Facebook, we do this on Google+. So I don't know if it's petty. I just think it's us explaining it. I think it can help clients to understand some of the dumb things they say. I've had clients go there and be like, wow, I didn't realize how stupid some of these things are. It's like, yes, you've said some of these things to me. I think it helps them kind of realize where our frustration points are as well.
Andrew.
Yeah, I guess the biggest, to add on to that, the biggest thing is kind of the grab information and maybe put it into or calling it a clients from hell, make a nice, better FAQ section and a polite way of answering their questions. That's generally what I try to do. But,
What's your take on the trend?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan, that people are going to complain regardless. But I think that for people who are going to it, especially within the industry, if you take a positive kind of outlook on it and you take it as a learning experience. So these are kind of common issues that come up with clients and common questions a lot of times. And there's a lot of things that clients are asking that could have been avoided in the first place if scope was explained a little bit better, or if there was an educational process involved in the client relationship as well. So I think that these things that are being posted, you can actually learn from and how to avoid wasting time answering stupid questions.
So you guys think it's kind of a learning tool aside from just kind of a venting tool also?
I think it's a learning tool, but I think it's also like a tabloid magazine. If you look at them, do we care that Beyonce is more cellulite than somebody else? We buy this stuff as humans.
Yeah.
We like to see the misfortunes of others and make ourselves feel better. So but it's also, wow, my clients aren't asking. I've never had a client ask that. So, it's like, wow, my clients are better than that. So I think in some ways it helps boost our egos a little bit too.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it's funny. It's entertaining.
It's a little bit of stress relief, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so follow up to that. So if there's like first-time developers and designers in the room, what are the biggest mistakes that first-time developers and designers make when handing off a project to a client or the entire development phase? I think it's safe to say that we've all made mistakes working with our first clients. So you guys can use a funny example if you want, or Aleah, do you answer?
Oh man, there's so many mistakes that can happen, especially just beginning. One of my biggest lessons was contracts. That was a big thing for me because I like to believe in the best of people. So I'm like, yeah, we've had meetings, we've talked about price. This was years back when I was still freelancing, and getting things in contracts and really learning the difference too of lots of people say they want to start a project, and I don't even touch my keyboard until I get a deposit from them, because a lot of times, yeah, a lot of times where clients will they'll take up to a year to actually even give you a deposit, so you don't want to be wasting your time. As far as that's one. That's my biggest one. I would say.
Andrew, do you have any tips? When you're starting off a project, or When you were a first-time developer, was it like a mistake that you made?
One thing I realized, kind of what you're alluding to, getting the deposit or getting content that, of course, always takes forever to get, is getting, one thing that I've sort of learned to do or incorporated the last few months is to get people to kind of not, you want them to kind of almost dance for you a little bit. Make, like, you want them to get them to respect your time. So it would be like, get them to join LinkedIn. Get them to like sort of fill out some sort of inquiry form. Like get them to do something to show that they're serious about it before I'll even talk to them about the project. Like if they take, I had one client that it took 4 months to just, and he's a buddy of mine. I still have beers with him, but I won't talk about his website until he gets that. It took him 4 months to get the inquiry form, so it finally happened last week. But those are things that I do. It's just like get them to sort of jump through a couple of hoops, not insult them, but just a couple things to show that they're serious, and then they'll respect your time, and things seem to get onto a good footing for my fund.
On what Andrew was saying, I think one of the biggest mistakes we sometimes make is as soon as a client tells us the requirements, we jump on, this is what they said they want, and I find too often we don't ask why. Why do we need this? Why is this important? What is the purpose of having this? Is it just you saw this functionality in your friend's site and you go, I must have that? Or why do we need that? How are we going to integrate this? And how's it going to work with everything else? And I find, too often we're not asking those questions and we get ourselves into a jam. The other thing, coming from an educational perspective, I find too often developers and designers feel like the project is done the minute they, send that email to their client with their username and password for the CMS, and there's not enough of that training on the back end. We assume our clients know how to use all the software because we work with it, 8 hours a day. And so often we go, well, it's just easy. Just click this button and do this. And the client often needs to be held hands not only from how to use the software, but strategically. What are they going to put into that wisdom together? What's the content going to be? How are they going to make this work for them? So I think sometimes we need to think beyond our job. Just okay, design's done, development's done, I'm done.
Okay. So you guys, go ahead.
I just have one more thing to add, and on what you were saying, Andrew. Just getting your client to do some homework. I find, especially because I'm more on the designer side of things, and from the designer point of view, to really kind of get an understanding of their design preference. I mean, we all have our ideas of what's modern and what they should be leaning towards as far as design goes. But I'll do kind of like a brand character type exercise where I'll list out what's the different characteristics of a potential brand character, and then some example sites. And that way I get a much better feel for what the preference is and what they feel the brand character is, and that really helps me determine whether or not to go more on an elegant type design or something that's really candid, for example. And then it also, I get them to kind of make comments and things like that on those different sites, and that really helps even with the functionalities too, because they might point out certain functionalities, and that starts that discussion.
So like you guys are kind of thinking that one of the big first steps is really kind of push back and show your professionalism when you start off the project. I think that you guys can kind of tie to that. So when you're starting off the project, what are the steps that you do? Do you set up personal training sessions, or keep a portion for maintenance costs following through? So like, what are your favorite strategies for pushing off the maintenance portion of the project? Andrew, let's start with you.
When it comes to maintenance and training, is so important to have that in your contract. Just list it right off the bat. That's because you know it's going to be needed. Unless you're working, well, I really working with a client that's very rarely we were dealing with a client that has a lot of WordPress experience. So you just have to assume that they know next to nothing, and then kind of start from there. Like, not only do you want to factor in time for training at the end of the contract, but when you hand that over, but I tend to, and you can deliver that in different ways in person, or you can do it teleconference. Many different ways to do it. But then there's also, like, I find setting up some sort of like help functions, like FAQ, if you call it an FAQ page, or they put on right onto the WordPress. There's different plugins like Publisher Help, things an easy one to use. So you can basically make like basic pages with like still shots or videos, and to really help them along from the little basics to at least a moderate level, so that they can they're up and function and be able to do those day-to-day things that are minimum.
Yeah.
I try not to put a maintenance agreement in place. I prefer to hand the project off at a certain point and then say, if you need me, I'll just work with you on an hourly basis, because often the stuff they ask me for on maintenance is stuff that honestly is not worth my time or them paying me my rate for. Like, can you add a comma to this thing and that thing? It's like, it's easier for you to go into the CMS and do it. I'll do it if you want to pay my rate, but it's not worth that price. If maintenance comes out due to fault in the development or the design, I'll work with them on an hourly rate based on what it is. But as far as training goes, I also don't think that a training phase is necessarily the right way to go. I think training has to start right from the beginning. Even when you're working on design and development, we're doing this because it fits with this plugin, or this is the way things are going to work in the CMS. This is why we're designing it. If you can train the client the whole way through on this is why things are happening this way. These are going to make it easier for you in the end. Yes, this design might not be exactly what you wanted, but we had to make it fit this paradigm or this functionality. You're training the client the whole way through of what actually goes into that. So often people just think they can do whatever they want to. It's like it's that training all the way through, and then at the end, it's now that we built it this way, we'll train you on how to use that tool. And when I'm assessing that training portion at the end, that final piece, I also don't just say it's going to cost this much for training. You got to look at what I think a lot of people forget is the users that need it. I've worked with different groups where the C-suite of management needs, per trainer, pretty much launch the web browser, type this in the address bar, or perhaps the marketing team. Already, we can assume they know how to log into WordPress and go from there. Maybe there's another group that can just upload content. So I always look at what are those user requirements as well. So I'm just saying training will be this much. It might be a different cost based on who I'm talking to. If it's old people, young people, tech literate, not tech literate.
That's an interesting question. So I think most typically people do a kind of maintenance schedule afterwards. What is your client's feedback from that kind of idea to that you won't do a maintenance, you'll just do an hourly charge?
Generally, they're okay with that.
Okay.
I think what I found is if we've scoped everything up front and we have a good agreement, they're okay with that. Because I found by talking to some of my clients, if you put maintenance costs in there, they assume something's going to be broken. You buy a fridge and you say, all right, here's your $5,000 fridge. And don't worry, we put in 3 visits from the maintenance guy. You're going, well, is this fridge broken? Why does the maintenance guy need to come 3 times? So to me, this is the project, it's done. At this point, based on our scope of work, we're happy to work with you again, but it's going to cost you that hourly rate. I find 2 times when they say maintenance, their idea is different than ours. Oh, we need, this new feature added, and that's just maintenance of the calendar. Well, no, that's 40 hours of work. So we're happy to work with you on that, but we'll bill it out an hourly rate, just like any other work.
Lowest type in there. Yeah, it's really, you really want to be clear of what that maintenance entails. You certainly don't want to be the person you may want to be the person helping day-to-day maintenance, but most cases you probably don't want to. You really want to get that off your plate because it is a big time suck and not worth your hourly rate.
Our idea of minor revision is often different than our client's idea of minor revision.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of assess right from the start what kind of business it is. So if it's a startup versus something that's more established, and I can kind of see from our conversations that they're not going to have that amount of time to do, the kind of maintenance like comma checks and the occasional content inputting, then that's kind of where I start the discussion. So if they're the type of company that isn't going to have the time, then we have that discussion from the get-go, and I say that there's those options available, but at the end, I can teach somebody within their company to do this for them. And with startups, typically what I do is within the budget, with each website, I do video tutorials at the end of it, and then I'll walk them through it. So depending on what their budget is dependent on how detailed those video tutorials are and how much they're going to need. So there's always a kind of a combination and an individual assessment. And I'm the same way in terms of, if it's typically, it's like if you need a thing here and there, give me a call and I'll charge my hourly rate. If it's something that's a feature and they think that it's something really quickly, I'll come back to them and just say, look, this is something, because I've already educated them through the process, I can educate them a little bit further and they'll have a better understanding of, this isn't something that's really quick, and I'll just give them another quote for that particular add-on.
one last thing on this topic too. Often I'll try to find a champion internally. Maybe it'll be the IT guy who's built his own, his wife's site on WordPress, or it might be the marketing manager who's built that site for, or they've never used WordPress, but they've done some web development. I'll kind of bring them into the group and say, hey, this is the way we're doing it. Look at these cool tools. And if you can find that champion internally, often they can help with the quick questions of, oh, I lost my password, how do I remember it? Or, where's that button again? And that sort of thing. So if you can get that champion internally, that person's going to look great. I mean, I've had people who got promoted in their company because they were kind of the champion with us, so it makes them look good. Because, wow, Bob knows how to use the website. Let's make him manager of web content. So that's great for Bob, right? We're helping him. Then he's going to remember us in the future because we made him look good. But also then a lot of those things are alleviated in-house. And also then, if someone needs to contact me, there's one voice. So it'll probably be Bob to call me because everyone's going to funnel everything through Bob.
So you're basically turning people into webmasters.
Turning people, I wouldn't say necessarily webmasters, but even turning people into advocates, right? For what we've done, for this is the right platform. It is easy to use. Look, I can do this sort of thing.
Sweet. All right, so a quick, more technical question for people who are kind of interested. What are your non-WordPress tools that you use to help teach your clients? So I know you mentioned videos and stuff like that. Do you have a specific tool that you use, like a screen capturing?
Yeah, I used to use Screen, but then Maverick with the new the new OS system on Mac it made a bunch of my programs kind of break. But now QuickTime, the new QuickTime has screen capture, so I just use that. I mean, it's really
okay, cool,
pretty basic.
How about you, Andrew? Any tools besides screen capturing or anything?
Questions?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
For training, I use, because I have clients in Ontario as well, so I can't meet them face to face, so I'll use programs like TeamViewer. I find it's really easy to get them, you can see their screen, they can play around, you can kind of be able to click and point and sort of help them along the way. There's other great resources if you're looking for screenshots or explanations on different WordPress things, EasyWP. Put out basically it's a PDF and a Word doc version too, so you can basically just rip it off and they're totally happy with them using it. And it gives you a ton of information, saves you time to make up your own help files and information. So.
How about you, Dan?
EasyWP is a good one. I've used WP 101, which is a video tutorial site you can subscribe to, and you can actually pay a certain amount to get a white label. So your clients will go there and have your label on it, your branding, but it's video tutorial, everything from login to create a post to do more advanced things. I use a lot of the tools these guys have mentioned, but maybe it's because I'm in education, but don't undervalue the face-to-face. Sit people down in our room with a projector and go through things. I think too often in our industry we tend to be introverts and not want to do that kind of stuff, but I've seen some of the best results before where let's get the whole team in one room, let's talk them through, let's put it on a projector, let's go through these features, and let's learn from each other. Most of the time, a lot of people have the same questions. I've answered it 6 times in a different conference call over TeamViewer. Let's get everyone together. So don't undervalue that.
Nice. I think that's a really good combination of tools. I use the video screen capture myself and face-to-face. So, what are your guys' favorite WordPress tools, plugins, or more importantly, theme development techniques? So, obviously, one of the things that as designers and developers we can do is actually create custom themes and kind of harness that. So, what are your guys' favorite tools or tips that you give to someone creating a theme?
I'm just trying to think of the specific name of it. It's WP Bakery Visual Composer. That one is really awesome for handing off to clients because it kind of makes putting things into columns, adding different widgets and things like that really, really easy. I also really like. We do a lot of events management type websites. So Event Manager Pro, I found is really good. And then also for memberships, Paid Membership Pro, I've done blue sites with that, and I really like it. I mean, it requires some customization, but in general, I find the plugin really good. And then of course, Layer Slayer and some basics. Code Canyon. You can find a bunch of their stuff on Forest. I found that their plugins are quite good.
Dan, do you?
I have 6 plugins I generally use in every site I build. One is TinyMC Advanced, which is the WYSIWYG editor. I know some people just express their displeasure around the WYSIWYG editor, and allows you to actually custom pick what you want the user to be able to do. So you can say, oh, I want to enable tables, or I don't want to enable tables, but I want to enable acronyms and that sort of thing. So it really gives you better control over the WYSIWYG. I always use the broken link checker, especially when handing off to clients. I want them to be able to visually see from one widget on the dashboard, here's all the broken links, and they can actually just click one button and fix that link, and it'll recode the page, which is pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Jetpack. For those of you that don't know, Jetpack bridges the gap between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, so a lot of the features that are in the WordPress hosted version, it brings to your self-hosted version, and there's a lot of really cool tools in there. Contact Form 7, I always use anytime I want to build a contact form. It's like a WYSIWYG contact form editor, so a client could build their own contact form fairly easily. Scissors Continued is a great image plugin. It lets you resize images, rescale images, crop them, add watermarks right on the server side. So when the users are uploading things to the media library, they have a lot more control. And the last one, which you will have by default, but always enable please, is Akismet. I don't know what I do without Akismet. It's the anti-spam plugin that comes with WordPress, and it does a great job. Without it, I'd have a bunch of people trying to sell weird crap to my comments on every site. So enable Akismet.
Andrew, do you have any tools that you use?
I use there's some of those I use. I guess for contract forms, I use some big fan of Gravity Forms. Premium form creator, but it's so powerful. You can do so much with it. Also, I use a lot of iThemes.com. They have a slew of they have sort of theme frameworks. So instead of just like a full premium theme, they have sort of like a called Builder. It's kind of like a framework that you can kind of start with, and allows you to. It makes it really easy to make a site responsive because it's already kind of builds that in for you, and then you kind of design your different areas. It's very nice, and they have Themes has all kinds of things. Like they're the ones that do backup buddy, which you can't stress until you get in trouble. You don't realize how important to back up your site is.
Joys of losing website.
Oh yeah, Connor and I have had some nice conversations about people hacking your sites and using nice things. So
not client sites. No client sites.
Fortunately not.
I've had one on my site.
Yeah, it's never a good experience to have a hacked WordPress website on a client freaking out.
I used to have a module on my client site that left a message at the top or a non-authorized IP that pretty much threatened if you come in here, I'm going to hack you back. So leave now.
That's a pretty bold statement. I like the aggression.
My client has never got hacked. I had a couple of intrusion attempts, but none of them ever changed. So.
Best defense is a strong offense.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect strategy. So I guess, what is the most common error that end users make when using WordPress? And how do you guys help prevent that problem? Let's start with you, Dan.
I think the biggest problem I see is people assuming that the way to give them the site is it can sit in a state of, especially with updates, it can sit in a state of being forever. And I'll go into client sites that are still running like 3.1 and that sort of thing. So it's getting them to understand why they need to update stuff, how to do those updates, which as we all know in WordPress is really simple, and why that's important to stay on top of. Like you guys were talking about with hacking. Sometimes that's the quickest thing is, hey, you guys don't want your site to get hacked? Stay up with these updates, but it's often the person who's going in there quickly on their phone to edit something, and I've had clients that have never even used the web interface. They're always using the WordPress app on their phone or something like that. So understanding why you need to update that stuff. And also, don't touch, and I mean, you can change it through the functions file, but don't touch stuff I haven't told you how to use. We've had clients who said, I don't think I need this plugin, and they'll disable it. And it's like, my site doesn't work. Right, because certain functionality is needed. So keep your hands where, to yourself essentially, use only the stuff I've shown you how to use, and update your site. I think those are two big.
Yeah, I tend to use like advanced access manager to help, especially if you're going through that training period. Yeah. Until you find your champion that you can kind of maybe get him like sort of in access. A lot of people kind of want to clamp down.
Yeah.
Kind of prevent people from accidentally deleting pages. Just can't full on access and things like that.
I have the same kind of thing where I'll set them up as like an editor first, so that they have like very limited functionalities that they can kind of have access to on the back end, just while they're getting their training wheels on. And then once they're a little bit more comfortable, they've like asked a few more questions, then I'll kind of open up the rest of it. And that's just so that, you know, right off the bat, they don't do a bunch of things that are going to screw up the website. And I also too, I put, you know, when I am doing that transition, I make sure that I put in writing several times, and I get them agreeing on it, that once I give them admin type access to the website, whatever they do to the website could potentially mean that they're going to basically have to hire me again to fix whatever they've done. Because a lot of times what happens, and this is the learning experience that I had, was when I didn't put that in writing several times and kind of get them to say, yes, we understand, okay, then they would do some things, make the site crash, and then they would turn around and blame me. And because I didn't have it in writing, you know, and they didn't understand that, then, you know, it creates fiction. You never want that with your client.
Another big one I think we've all seen is the person who tries to write all their content in Word and dump it into the WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
And that's another frustration there. And if you use TinyMC Advanced, the plugin I was mentioning earlier, there's actually a paste from Word button, so you can have them paste in there and it'll sanitize it all. That way they're not calling you going, why is the headline green? Because you make it green in Word. Like, you know, that overrides all default styles. So that's another one I run into all the time.
Yeah, version 3.9 is a lot better.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So since we've got a few minutes before beer o'clock, sort of recessing upon that. Any questions? Let's open it up to discussion.
I have a question back here. Talking about maintenance and updates, I find often if the client's updating on their own, sometimes it'll break the site. Like moving from 3.7 to 3.8, that broke a lot of themes, and so the groups had to really catch up to really fix that. So, what's your stance? You know, do you encourage them to always update, or do you turn off certain plugins or certain themes from even displaying the update notification? How do you handle that?
Well, maybe I'll answer first. For me, you know, it starts off from the very beginning process, and I educate my clients. For instance, when a lot of times I've taken clients from a Drupal site to a WordPress site, and I've talked to them about the fact that, you know, from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, you have to redo a lot of things.
Yeah.
So one of the strong points is with WordPress, as I say, that it's just as easy as a button click. However, and I educate them that, you know, sometimes there can be things that go awry, and then you have to go in and do some fixing. So that way, when things like that happen, they can contact me, and I can say, okay, well, this was one of the updates, and it's just that continuing education process of just allowing them to see that, you know, yes, this one update that happens, but that doesn't mean that each time you should be afraid to update your site.
Dan will talk about my tactics there. But because I work with small companies that usually don't have the web hero, and so what I usually do is I'll put in the contracts like a maintenance deal and say like, while I would never want to do day-to-day things, I will do maintenance. I'll back up your site. I'll do the plugin updates on, like, say, a weekly basis, and for a certain monthly fees for a deal. So that gives me a chance to kind of reevaluate when I get 3.92 come out, that I can sort of test it on my sites or on another site before launching it there, and kind of prevents a lot of potential issues. So that's sort of the tactics that work with me. I basically hold that back. And it's very important for me, and it also saves a lot of headaches. It works well for small companies. It doesn't work for every situation, but it works well for me, I find.
I generally, when I'm building a site, I will try to keep good notes on which API calls I've used, stuff like that. So when a new update does come out, I make it part of my practice to email all my clients I know are on WordPress and say, hey, there's a new version update. You know, here's some features you'll notice from the front end to kind of let them know it's coming out. And you know, if I know something might break based on what I use there, I might say, hey, we might have a problem with this or that, but I would never encourage a user not do an update, because generally there's security updates, and there's, I think, greater risk to not doing them. So if something like that happens, some will say, you know what, it's a quick change, we'll do it for free, or you know what, that's the cost of upgrading. You know, we got to look at maybe this plugin's broken, and you know, we need to find something different. But I kind of assess that case by case. But yeah, it would generally be, like I said, I like to reach out to them, and I've had a lot of people say, "Wow, that's so great! Like, thanks for telling me a new one's out." And they think that I'm, you know, taking special care to send it to them. I shove it in my email, you know, mass email program, and insert first name here, and send them a note. And so I'm just, you know, sending out a mass email. But people think that you're taking special care on their site and their project again.
Any other questions? We'll start with you first. Sure.
Do any of you manage your own hosting, and do you give the clients access to the control panel that runs the server side of things?
I do, yeah. But I think for me, it's like a reselling kind of hosting, and
I see all the region.
yeah. So, I mean, I my advice on that, and originally I was like, that'd be great, because then I can provide, you know, hosting, and then I can do the website, and all of it can be in one big package, and it's been a nightmare. And it's, I've completely gone away from that now, and I just say, like, here, I'll give you a referral link to, you know, like a Bluehost or something like that. I hate GoDaddy. It always breaks. I hate it. Stupid media temple now has been taken over by GoDaddy. But anyways, yeah, what wound up happening is I've given them cPanel access, and even though the interface was really simple, I thought, to use, they just never wound up using it. So I wound up getting like IT type phone calls, like my email's not working. Why is my email not working on my Outlook? And it has a big server. So my advice is don't do it. It's a big time hole.
I'll jump in on that one too. I used to do my own hosting. I found that the margins on hosting today, I couldn't make it competitive, you know, and I, like you said, I don't want that headache. I'd rather say, you know what, here's a host that I recommend. I'll put your site there. I'll even set up the account for them. I'll give them the cPanel access because I believe it's their site. They've paid for it. It's theirs to have. You know, if they want the password, it's their site. And that way too, if they have a problem, I can say, you know what, don't call me. Here's the 800 number for the host. Call them, get them to figure it out. And going to the Andrew said about FAQs on WordPress, the host I use is HostGator. And they've got a great FAQ section. They've got video tutorials on how to, you know, set up your email and cPanel, that sort of thing. But I'd rather just, you know, I don't want the call at 3 in the morning. A client called me one time, my site's down. I'm like, well, so am I. You know, you're a Calgary-based company. Nobody's trying to buy flowers at 3 in the morning. Like, oh, look at the date. So now I can say, you know what, don't call me for hosting. Here's the 800 number. Call these guys. They're the best at it. Instead of me pretty much on the live support with the phone on my shoulder trying to type in their question. Like, why have that middleman and I have to charge for that? So.
Yeah, to add on to that, just from my own experience too, like if you have third-party web hosting, it's a lot easier if something happens. Like, say you don't want to do websites anymore, you want to, you know, join the circus, something, and your client, you've got the whole website hosted on your servers, or you're in control of that. That's a really awkward conversation.
Setting up a server is a different skill set too. You know, I'm a great developer. I'm not a great server admin. I don't like upgrading Apache, and often, like I was talking about with security, I don't want to be the guy that we got hacked because I didn't update Apache because I don't like doing it. So I'll leave that to somebody else who that's their specialty.
Yeah, I agree.
You had a question in the back there?
Yeah, through your experience, what kind of themes do you consider completely not usable? Like going from one theme version to the next theme version, it breaks the site completely. Like, what do you avoid? Like, what companies do you avoid?
I tend to make all my stuff custom, so I don't go out and buy a lot of themes to really know the players there. Sometimes I'll modify one, but generally I'm making everything custom. So I'd say avoid anything that doesn't do what you want to do. You know, if you have a certain plugin that needs custom CSS and your theme doesn't do that, maybe you need to go and look at writing your own or something like that. But I think I think we can all probably name 5 or 6 good theme stores online, even though I don't use them, I know where you can go buy them. Any of those should be good. And generally, there's a preview you can use before you buy a theme. Really take time to just go, wow, pretty, add to cart. Really take time to go through it, look at it, and say, does it do what I want? Does it display the content the way I want? That sort of thing.
And well, to add on to that is because we're blogging more, you can always find some sort of comment about a theme. So just do your homework. What's the biggest thing? Stick it to the big names. Is definitely a safe bet.
If the theme has 20 and then another year after and it shipped with WordPress, don't use it because everyone's using it.
Yeah,
it's the only thing I really use. 2012, 2013, 2014.
Well, it's the same thing with like for the WordPress repository. Just look at the comments. There's stars and the comments in there. If it says like a plugin or a theme hasn't been updated since 2010, you may want to stay away, or definitely stay away. So you just do your homework, be knowledgeable, and read blogs. They're great on not just ones from WordPress, but
people I've worked with too on that have actually emailed webmasters who are using certain themes and say, hey, what do you think of this? You paid the $20 for this. Did you find any challenges? Did you hire a developer to work with anything? So just like you'd ask for references if you're hiring somebody, look for references in the product. Ask people who are using that theme where you see it. Hey, that's cool. Or if you see a site you like, email a person and say, is this a custom theme? Where can I get it? Or sometimes that's even up in the comments within the HTML. But look at that. Ask them what kind of integration challenge they've had. Because as a community, we're our best resource to some of those questions.
Well, I agree with that. And reading the reviews and things, and I found looking like if the page, for instance, that's advertising the theme, if they have some shots, some screenshots of the back end, then you can kind of get a gist of how they built up the back end. Because I found there's been a few themes that I've purchased. The reviews were good, but I mean the people who are making the reviews, they may not be developers or trying to do anything extra with the site. For me, a lot of times the theme is the base, and then we kind of build on from there. And when you open up the package, they've created a way that you really can't customize or do very much with it. So, looking at those screenshots is good, and then actually reading the reviews and making sure that the reviews are coming from people who are trying to do something similar with the site that you are.
On that too, I look at the few times I have used a purchase theme, if you will. I was looking if there's any required modules, because there have been times you bought a theme and you get to do what they want, it requires a certain module, it might conflict with another module I have to use.
Yeah.
So I was looking at what are the dependencies there. And sometimes I haven't bought a theme, or suggest somebody else not buy a theme because this module is not going to play nice with this other module. I know that from experience. Or you know what, it's doing a slideshow thing, and I have a better way of doing that. And so some of these modules you buy, and you're not really buying the module. You're buying the module and the theme with 40 different plugins or custom built kind of crappy modules on top of it.
Yeah.
So really look at those kind of things too. What's required to get this up and running.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a fantastic way to end this. So thank you guys so much. Really. And please don't visit clients from LT much. Or be depressed. We are last couple panels today. So Kurt's in here. Kurt Archer in the back there is in here doing a walkthrough 3.91. All the cool things that are going on, and then Fishbowl will be starting at 4 o'clock. So, see you guys in a bit.